TikTok is home to thousands and thousands of videos, including get ready with me's, lip syncing, and dance challenges, or commentary on current events. It's the place so many spend hours doom scrolling before bed. But occasionally, when someone is in too deep on the app, they go beyond their usual harmless videos. They end up on the weird, freaky, and strange side of their algorithm. And once you're there, you're not sure how to get off. This is what happens when users stumble upon an account like Gekka1201 example com2, and I'm just gonna call him Gekka for short. Watching their first couple of videos, nothing seems too out of the ordinary. It seems like it's just a normal account run by a Russian user. The first video is someone filming a man sleeping on a couch and another man fixing a toilet. Based on Google Translate, they seem to only talk about the repair on the toilet. Just another random TikTok video. But things get unsettling the more you watch. The second video is an older man in a pretty much bare room, except for a couch in the corner. The audio in the back is an electronic dance song, something you might hear at a rave. The video is cut up clips of this guy dancing, which I guess seems unsuspicious on the surface, but not if you rewatch a couple of times. He looks exhausted, like he doesn't really know what he's doing. I don't know, he just looks out of it. But the more that I look at this account, I start to see that this video is nothing compared to some others that they've posted. The dancing continues, but it stops being just a feeling that something is off. There is definitely something wrong. It's not just that man anymore. There are a couple different reoccurring people. Sometimes they're dancing, or sometimes they're just sitting, talking, or eating. More often than not, one is dancing and others are in the background. Here's one example that shows how creepy this is. Two men are dancing along to a Russian song. One of the guys seems relatively normal, maybe just a little awkward. But then the other guy, there's something wrong with the other guy. He has a blonde wig on, a bra painted on his chest, and underwear over his pants. It could point to a unique way of self-expressing, but I highly doubt it, because there's also this girl in the back sitting on a wooden chair. She's staring off into the corner, almost like she's trying to avoid looking at the men in front of her. She looks absolutely miserable. She doesn't want to be there. That much is obvious. It makes the whole thing look staged, put together like an act. And if this girl doesn't want to be there, do either of these guys? It sounds crazy, but it feels more realistic the more I look at this account. In some videos, they have buckets over their heads or words painted on their body, and they either look uncomfortable in the background or they're in the front dancing, but look spaced out, like they're not all there. At this point, viewers are confused. The comments are filled with concern. Someone says, "I've said this so many times. I don't think they are okay, but how do we do something about it?" Someone else says, "This is that House of Horrors vibe. Anyone looking into it?" And another says, "Makes me wonder what he's making them do off camera." Users want to help these people immediately. It's not just the tired looks, the forced dancing, and the weird clothes, because if you look closely, these people don't look healthy. Many are covered in bruises, some looking very severe. They're along their faces, their heads, or parts of their body. Yet everyone in the videos pretends like everything is fine. They just keep going, swaying to the music, barely conscious or standing up, spacing out as the camera watches them. It's inhumane to film someone in that state, or worse, to force them to do this. That's not all that's being forced though. In some videos, people started noticing what they're eating. Sometimes it's normal things, like I notice them having grapes, or often they drink beer. But other times they have bowls in front of them filled with cat food. cat kibble, the dry, brown, tasteless meal that we give to animals. These poor, bruised up, and bone-tired people are not only forced to dance for TikTok, but also to eat cat food? It's beyond sickening. But thank God users were catching on. They're going insane in the comments, trying to figure out ways to contact authorities in Russia and get this shut down. But then some figure out what's going on. And it's not so simple, because these videos are a part of a larger group of videos in Russia, Poland, and Ukraine. It's called trash streaming. It's basically a genre of live streaming where creators will have themselves or someone else do crazy, humiliating, or dangerous behavior in order to get a lot of views. This has led to incredibly tragic incidents, some resulting in death. There was one streamer who was just sick. He poured cold water over his girlfriend's head, locked her outside on the balcony in just her underwear, and left her to die of hypothermia. Then, like the disgusting human he is, he filmed her dead body after he just murdered her for views. So that's what these people are dealing with. Whoever is filming them is a part of this trash streaming culture, and they're forcing these innocent people to do these horrible things to get likes and donations. They are raking in money off their suffering. There's an article circulating on Reddit that talks about some of these extreme trash streaming incidents, including something that happened with the people in these videos. One of the older men was paid to drink an excessive amount of vodka during a live stream. His name was Yuri Dushakin. It's not clear exactly how much he was forced to drink, but it was enough to kill him. He passed away shortly after that. And who knows how long the stream was, but looking at some of the TikToks, people can see timestamps on the laptop of the person behind the camera. Sometimes they'll have been going for 24 hours straight. A whole day without breaks. Only given cat food and vodka. Forced to dance for hours and hours in humiliating clothing and body paint. There is speculation that these people are homeless, possibly living in poverty, and doing this for housing and food in return. Whether that's the case or not, it's still despicable. Everyone is deserving of food and shelter, and shouldn't have to be forced into humiliation and dangerous conditions in order to have them. It's diabolical. Exploiting these people for money, it's beyond cruel. And it's heartbreaking to think that these people may never have gotten help. Many of the trash streamers don't get convicted, and I have a feeling whoever's behind this is no different. In a couple videos, there's a paper on the wall with a YouTube channel name. The channel's videos are all in Russian, so it's hard to get an idea of what's happening, but it seems to be more podcast-style videos, much different than the TikTok account. But still, it seems whoever was behind Gekka is also behind this channel. And while the last TikTok was posted 4 years ago in 2022, the last YouTube video was posted 7 months ago, in June of 2025. So, nothing happened. The monster abusing these people in the videos was never punished. Trash streaming started to lose its popularity in 2022, which not coincidentally is when the TikTok video stopped. And then the creator just went about their life and moved on to making different things. But what happened to the victims? Well, years later, no one knows. Were there more deaths that we aren't aware of? Were they just abandoned or thrown out into the street? Discarded when they weren't needed anymore? I hope they got out and found a much better life. A peaceful life where they didn't need to stay up for days, forced to entertain an audience that pays to watch their agony. And hopefully, whoever is behind Gekka 1202 Example Com 2 doesn't make another cent off those videos. I live in rural Alabama, specifically a valley that the woods are notorious for hiding secrets, whether that be drugs, bodies, assaults of all kinds. The woods hold screams unheard of by most people, but it's strange. I hear them all the time, the shrieks and the cries, the horror of the forest rushing past me since that day. These are stage setting details. It was late one summer evening, and me and a group of friends and their partners decided we were going to go explore the forest. Most of them were drinking. I, however, absolutely refused to do it due to family history of alcohol abuse, so I had a soda, and so did like 3 of the group members. But after the drunkies had a couple of beers, they said we should set off, so that's just what we did. But the thing about Alabama woods is that there are usually stretches of empty land and fallen trees, so the sober members had machetes and simple survival kits, small knife, stero strips, canteens, snacks, sleeping bags, and tents. We're about 2 hours out from the campsite when James says, "Sage, what the fuck is that?" Huh? The fucking massive thing 50 feet away. What he was referring to is the massive cedar trees towering above the forest. This tree is thick and sturdy and wouldn't tip over easily. You would need a chainsaw and a few hours to cut the thing down. It's a fucking tree, moron. Let's keep going. We don't have all the time in the world. As we keep walking, we hear sounds of animals and other things, probably another group of teens having a grand old time. We keep walking, closing the distance to the campsite. 1 hour, then half an hour, and finally we get to the site. We set up camp, and the drunk ones open up more beers, and the sober ones open up sodas, and we light the fire and grill the hot dogs, marshmallows, and Starbursts. Then one by one, we head to bed. I camped with the drunkest ones to ensure they stay on the campground. By midnight, we are all in bed, but then one by one, we all leave the tents, collecting by the fire, because out of nowhere, at 2 a.m., we hear shrieks from girls and guy, and then what I can only say is some kind of massive boom, scaring the shit out of everyone by this point. We pack up and leave, aka we sprint at full speed out of the woods, and we get an hour away from the campsite. We stop, realizing, wait, where's Kevin and Sarah? Group members, me, Sarah, Kevin, James, Stacy, Kyle, Vic, and Sam, and Haley, they had split off at some point. We say fuck it because it's too dark, and the screams roaring out in the woods scared us to the bone. We aren't going back. I shout, no chance. Sage, listen. No, damn it, I'm not doing this. My friends are missing. I'm the only sober person here, and we're going home. End of discussion. I don't smoke, but I ask for a cigarette, and I hold it. I don't light it, I just hold it between my fingers. We keep walking, and we get to the massive cedar tree. It was right in front of us. It wasn't standing anymore. It was laying on the ground, like it had been blown over. But like I said, it was a summer evening, not windy, nothing but a warm evening, but by this point, I scream, run. Because 50 feet to my left, I see something or someone. I'm not sure if it was a little taller than 6 feet and skinny. Too skinny. We sprint out of there, make it back to my car, and then we do another head count, -3 instead of 2. Stacy was gone too, but then out of nowhere, battered and bloodied, come Stacy, Sarah, and Kevin. Fucking hell. Y'all, what happened? They don't respond. They get to the car, and we go home. We decide to try again, and we go back, and one by one, did we lose a person only to have them return to all nasty and hurt. I was pulled away one time. It was my grandmother's voice, so like a dipshit, I follow it, and I reach it. It's that thing. The next thing I know, it's gone, and I sprint off. I found my wife's body in the closet yesterday. Pretty self-explanatory. I left for work at 9 the night before, got off early since it was my weekend, and went upstairs to find she'd committed S-word from our closet door and a rope. She suffered from mental health issues most of her life, and I guess I knew this might happen one day, but I didn't think it would be yesterday. The police came and went. We're sorry for your loss. Some friends came and picked me up. I'll be staying in the guest room for a bit, I guess. My family came to pick up my son. He'll be 3 in April. My sister-in-law is going to look after him, so at least he'll have his cousins to play with him. I had to comfort her mother, who blames herself. I had to call my job to tell him that I needed some time. I had to call estranged friends, having them disseminate to others I couldn't reach, got drunk, took an Ambien, slept, went to the car wash with a friend, stayed there until 3 a.m., watched Space Jam when I got back, talked to my dead wife in the rain. It's been a roller coaster of tears and laughter and silence, and I have so many questions that can wait. The weirdest thing is, though, I'm feeling intensely aroused, and I'm having trouble falling asleep. Normally, I jerk it to help myself drift off, and believe me, I want to. but I don't think I can. Looking at adult videos seems disrespectful, and I can't close my eyes without seeing her, so here I am, wide awake, spilling my guts into the void. Yesterday was the worst day of my life, and I'm worried about jerking it. God help me. Edit. I just wanted to say how grateful I am for everyone who reached out this morning. I want to say so much more, but everything I type looks wrong. My son and I will be okay. My wife is in no more pain. I have the most wonderful group of people sitting in this room with me right now. I'm not angry. Not with my wife, anyhow. I'm angry with her disease, but I couldn't have asked the girl I married to go on hurting anymore. If you or someone you know is suffering from mental health problems, let someone know. Let someone try. Fight like hell. Kiss your wife when you leave for work. Entities me and my neighbors had to deal with back in 2005. Move into a house in the outback in South Australia in 2005. Pretty much every person living in our street had only lived there for under 5 years, apart from an elderly couple that lived at the end of the street. This elderly couple had lived in the street for 40 years and had raised their children in the street. They said strange things happened on that street, and a lot of people can't handle it and leave. They never really went into what scared people, just saying the whole street was haunted or something like that. But they did say it only started happening in the early 90s. First experience I had was a week after moving in. I heard a low-pitched humming sound coming from outside my bedroom window. When I looked out, I saw this tall, black figure with long arms and long fingers, with no facial features. He was slightly transparent. He was backed up against the wall, holding up the garage area of my house. Due to its height, he had to be hunched over. I was looking out for about 5 seconds before it realized I was looking at it. It turned its head towards me, and I quickly ran away from the window and ran and told my parents. My dad went out and saw nothing was there. I sketched what I saw, pic related. And we can see the picture he drew. Black figure, long fingers, long arms, and very interesting. And then he keeps posting and he explains, I started hanging out with the neighborhood kids. We were all teenagers, and they told me their stories, and all described the same figure I had seen. One of the kids was Aboriginal, and we would go visit his grandfather a lot. He called the entities Myaluma, which translated roughly to stranger man. He said that the Aboriginals in the area had been dealing with them long before the arrival of Europeans, and said that they weren't of the land, which kind of meant they didn't belong there or weren't native to there, and that they would take children away and eat them. He said that the Aboriginals cast them behind the creek, but since the creek partially dried up, the Myaluma had once again been able to get into the town. The town that I lived in was built directly over the previous Aboriginal settlement. This Aboriginal tribe wasn't nomadic and had remained in a small area for over 1,000 years. One day, me and my friends were playing cricket out on the flat pitch of desert in between the road and my house. The sun was setting, and as we were packing up our stuff, we noticed that there were people off in the distance approaching the road. The closer they got, the more details we could see, and we noticed that they were fully black, tall, and that they weren't walking but floating. We could also hear a low-pitched humming sound that got louder the closer they got. We bolted back to my house and told my parents, but my parents once again just didn't believe us. I hassled my father enough to drive down on his motorbike to the area we saw them approaching. After 9 minutes, he came back to the house, visibly shaken, saying he saw them, and that I wasn't to go down there anymore. Every time I tried to get details on what happened, he would always change the subject. And then the OP attached a picture of his bedroom window and where he saw the figure standing. So for everyone about to call this story BS, I mean, the OP does include pictures of his house and the area around it, so that does add some credibility to it, in my opinion. But yeah, you see where he points out his bedroom window and where the figure is standing. I don't know why, but that is so creepy and disturbing to me. And he continues his story saying, "One night I was coming home from a party with my friends, and as we passed the empty lot in the street, we saw these two small figures sitting on tree stumps, just staring at us. One was bigger than the other, and once again we heard a low-pitched humming sound. We were all high as fuck, and we're just standing there, laughing, thinking we were tripping out, until we realized that we were all seeing the exact same thing, and we couldn't all be hallucinating the same thing. One of my mates took a step towards the one closer to us, and when he did, it made this very deep growl. I had never heard anything like it. And to make a long story short, we screamed and ran to my house. I'm mentioning this because unlike the tall figures I had seen, and I'd seen them a lot at night, these things were completely physical and not transparent. They were shaped like babies, but didn't have a neck." And then he attaches a picture of the two tree stumps they were sitting on. Very interesting. And then he continues talking. "Now this is where shit heats up. There used to be a group of kids that would take their dirt bikes beyond the creek and would go riding way out in the desert. One day they didn't come home, and everyone assumed they'd just gotten lost. They were found a week later. All 5 of them. They were alive, with no food and no water, out in the Australian outback for a week. What scared me was what one of the kids' younger brothers told me. He said that his brother had said they saw a light out in the desert, and they felt compelled to follow it. He said he felt like he was in a trance, and they didn't stop following this light for the entire week they were out in the outback. He said no matter how far they kept traveling, they didn't seem to get anywhere close to it. He said if the farmer that found them hadn't have found them, they never would have stopped following the light, and eventually would have died." And then he attaches a picture of what it looks like. It's kind of dark to see, but it looks like he points out his house, and then here's the creek that runs around the town, but due to it drying out, it stops around here. So you can see his house, the creek that he's talking about, and I assume all the way down there is where the kids were. Very cool that he's attaching these pictures so we get more of a perspective. Anyway, getting to the final part of the story. So my mother had gotten sick of me being scared all the time and called her sister, who lived in Adelaide, to come visit. She's a psychic or something. So she comes down. In the moment she pulls up, she tells us not to tell her anything about what we've seen, and that she's going to wander around the street for a while and come back and tell us what she saw. When she came back, she was visibly shaken. She told me that these things were unlike anything she had ever experienced, and that she had also run into the spirit of an old Aboriginal woman. The woman told her that her tribe were a split-off group from the Tharawal and came to that area that would become the town I lived in to escape the Mayamula, but the Mayamula followed them. The woman then showed her horrific images of these things slaughtering Aboriginal children and eating them through a small slit in their mouth. The woman then told her she drowned herself in the creek, so she would act as a spiritual barrier to keep the Mayamula out. She said this worked until a pyramid-shaped pathway was built facing the way the Mayamula had come from. This allowed them to come in once again, not the fact that the creek had dried up. And then the OP attaches another image. I can't read the top part, but I think it says, "This is where me and the neighbors would spot the tall figures entering the street, and then pyramid shape in the pathway, and then my house was on the corner opposite to this path." So I guess this is the pyramid thing they were talking about that allowed the Mayamula to come back. And the Aboriginal woman led my auntie down the path to show her something even more terrifying. After eating the small children, they would rebirth these kids to be their minions or some shit. My auntie said these things are completely physical and live out in the desert, and sometimes come into the town for food. She said these things are harmless and mainly just keep an eye on people for the Mayamula. My auntie became confused and said if they were killing children just to make them despise, then what was their motive in the first place? It was explained to her that the Mila Mula just seemed intent on inflicting pain and suffering on people. She said that they would R-word women and men alike, make women miscarriage, cause accidents, and kill the weak. Despite this, they seem to have a personal vendetta against the Aboriginal woman's tribe and seem intent on wiping them out. This is why they remain focused on the town. And then he adds another picture. Behind the green fence is flat, desert going, until it hits another road, then the desert continues. Pyramid pathway. So I guess this is where all the activity happens with these tall Mila Mula figures. And then he continues saying, my auntie came to the conclusion that the Mila Mula aren't human spirits, and aren't spirits at all. She believed that they were a physical, reproducing race of beings and are most likely aliens. She said she had heard of similar beings all around the world. And then he adds another picture, empty lot with the 2 tree stumps. Here's a view of my street. So I guess this is just where it all took place, on this weird corner of this neighborhood. And then he keeps talking, saying, after hearing all of this, we put the house on the market and began preparations to leave. A couple of days before we left, I went on one last motorbike ride where my father has told me not to go. While riding along a dirt path, I saw this rock on the side of the path. It was weird because it looked like it was smoothed down a bit and had some markings on it. I don't know if it's related at all to what had been happening. I personally think it's someone playing a joke because none of the engravings on it are Aboriginal, and the engravings on it are all over the place. Anyways, I took it with me when we moved. Pic related. So yeah, this is my experience with the paranormal. Thought I'd share it with you all, and it'd be great if someone else had an experience like this that they could share. And then the picture of the rock, I mean, I personally wouldn't take it with me, but it looks like there's a star on it, maybe a mother and a child, some other weird symbols, maybe some sort of like alphabet or just some sort of weird language. And then the final post on the thread says, "Gotcha, mate. He's going to send more when he decides to not be a lazy fuck." And I guess this is someone he knew who got a picture of this Malamula. And here's the picture. And his friend says, "There you go, mate. Still gives me chills. Fuck." And then I guess the OP says, "Thanks." And yeah, fucking. And then you can't see any more of the text, but you can see the figure. So, what do you think? I shot my stalker tonight. Posted on September 24th, 2014. And this was all recovered with the Wayback Machine. And the original title was, "Anyone had success with private investigators?" For the past 6 months, I have been relentlessly stalked and had threats against my life made from someone I dated for a month. It started with phone calls, upwards of 45 to 50 a day, 50-page text messages, and him showing up outside my house at 5 a.m. When I would not comply or feed the negative attention, I began to receive threats, claims that he would murder me and get away with it. All he would do is have to flee the country, telling me he shouldn't have to force me to be his friend or give him another chance or else. Every time I blocked his number from contacting me, he would then call me from different ones, try and pretend to be other people, or have his friends or sometimes even random strangers he'd ask on the street. I once scared a unsuspecting guy half to death after informing him that the person who had just told him to call me was actually stalking me, and I sent him proof. He ended up calling the police on him. He fled, of course. After about 2 months of that, I was evicted from my apartment building due to my neighbors no longer feeling safe because of his looming presence. I then applied for and was granted a TPO. A few days afterwards, I received a picture message of the note that the sheriff's civil had left on the door of my stalker's then residence, with a message taunting me that what you are trying to do is stupid, and a restraining order is just a piece of paper. So ultimately, he just ended up avoiding the process server, and simple as that. I was not being protected at all. May 31st of this year, I relocated. This did not deter my stalker. He vowed to find wherever I moved to and threatened that if he couldn't find me, he'd be able to find my family and then proceed to send me a map of my mother's home, whom he had never met. I received a message from a woman claiming to be a former landlord. letting me know that I owned a balance on my account, and to avoid late fees, I needed to pay the amount, which I would do with the link provided in the message. Turns out, it was my stalker pretending to be a woman, and the link turned out to be a tool used to grab the user's IP address when the link was clicked. Upon this discovery, I changed my phone number and began to systematically dismantle any trace of my online presence I once had. This action only seemed to anger him, and before deleting the profiles outright, I would attempt to block him from contacting me. Each and every time I blocked one, he simply created a new one and proceeded to contact me as if nothing had happened. 12 different Reddit accounts, 9 different Tumblrs, 10 different Instagrams, 3 Meetup accounts, 4 Facebooks, with which he changed his location to that of my hometown and proceeded to add nearly everyone from my graduating class in high school, and even 3 Duolingo accounts and MySpace. Yes, MySpace. I then received an empty package from him addressed to my former residence with the declaration, "Address correction requested. Do not forward." I'm assuming he thought that the post office would adhere to his requests and return the package to him with my new corrected address on it. Mid-July, he created a profile using my photos and likeness to threaten my family. When I didn't respond, he proceeded to post semi-nude pictures of me on the profile in an attempt to blackmail me into speaking with him. I did not and contacted Twitter to report the accounts and have it removed, which they eventually did. On August 21st, 2014, I awoke around 8 p.m. to vigorous knocking and ringing of my doorbell. I look out my window and to see who it is, and I was horrified to see my stalker there. I called the police, and of course he fled once again. Over 7 separate police reports filed. This incident was followed by threatening emails from my stalker, demanding that I meet him somewhere, or because he had found me that next time I would wake up to gunshots, and that if I didn't, he would first taser you and R-word you in the ass using your boyfriend's blood as lube. This past Sunday night, I woke up at 6:45 a.m. to the ringing and banging again. I proceeded to record him on video while I was on the phone with the police. He fled on foot once again, and I was hit with the same hoopla from law enforcement. Well, we can't really do much because technically at this point, he's not doing anything wrong. Then why does he flee, I wonder? I obtained a TPO again, but I have no solid address for this dangerous person, which is why I am in dire need of a private investigator to assist with finding said residence, so this person can be served. I hope you might be able to refer me to someone who might be able to assist me. I've developed insomnia, depression, anxiety, and paranoia. I am completely isolated. I am 22 years old and I have no social life anymore. I have 0 friends. I've become a shell of my former self. I faced eviction and lost a job because of this man's behavior, and I don't know how much longer I can survive. There's actually so much more filler shit that he has done to terrorize me, but for the sake of this already lengthy post, I tried to condense it. I have proof in the form of recordings, event diaries, and copies of all of his threats, interactions, and attempts to communicate, and would be more than willing to email them to show I'm not lying. I am in LV if that helps at all. And then she gives a too long to read, but crazy shit. And then there was some relevant comments. Someone commented, "Can you post the video?" And then OP said yes, but I'm on the phone with the police during the video. I'm not 100% sure how to blurt out certain information like my address and my phone number from the audio in the video. And then some more comments on the post 3 days later on September 27th. Someone says, "Damn, I remember talking to an old friend of mine from Vegas who was saying she'll get a CCW soon. I kind of think I should forward this to her. Soon just doesn't seem soon enough." And then OP says, "Do it. My gun saved my life." And then OP posts again on October 8th, 2014, 2 weeks after the original post. And then she attached an image, and the image is a photo of a slightly open door. The chair is in front, pushed to the side, and then black paint on the side is covering the side of the door that has been busted in. Arrows, most likely from crime scene units, are stuck to the door, pointing to individual spots. And then the OP writes this on the thread. And I had to get this from Imgur because she deleted the original thread. And the post read as follows. I'm writing this staring at the mess the police left for me, in a bit of a fog. After 6 months of stalking and threats against my life, my stalker finally snapped and decided to kick my door in and make good on his promise. Out of fear, the past month I'd begun sleeping with a chair propped against my front door to give myself a few extra precious seconds in case of emergency. I shudder to think how differently things might have turned out if I had not barricaded the door. I awoke around 1:15 a.m. to the sound of the door giving way after one kick, followed by the sounds of my stalker struggling to dislodge the chair while forcing his way inside. I jumped up and grabbed the gun I've learned to do everything, even shower with. I stood at the top of my stairs and fired twice, hitting him in the chest. I hear his scream, his disbelief that I'd stood up for myself. 0 to 100 in milliseconds. I've never been so afraid in my life. I do not know if he is living, but I do know the police have him, and that's what helps the most. 4 months of him evading the police, I began to question whether he was unstoppable, untraceable, Houdini. He would murder me and get away with it. As of now, I'm in a haze of guilt, surprise, relief, and disbelief. I shook as the canines drag him out of his hiding place under a bush. I survived, where so many people do not. Holy shit, I survived. Edit. The outpouring of support is wild. I can't thank you guys enough. Everyone can be a critic, and the fact still remains. You don't know what you will do in a situation until it's presented in front of you. Those who believe there was other things to be done have never had someone tell you that you no longer deserve to draw breath and mean it. As for the should have fired a warning shot folks, there are no warning shots. A gun is a deadly force. You only pull that trigger if you are in fear for your life and all the other methods of deterring are gone. When he kicked my door in, there was no longer a deterrent preventing harm. Warning shots are dangerous and could hurt the unintended. This is not a Wild West movie. That's what responsible gun ownership is. I'll update once things have calmed down a bit, I promise. I'll write back to everyone, and after being isolated for so long. Anyone who wants to be friends, I am always accepting those. And now we get to the news article. So, OP isn't lying. I mean, I don't think she would lie. I wasn't thinking that, but, all legit. And I'll read through the news article real quick, which was posted on October 2nd, 2014. Las Vegas, Nevada. A woman shot her stalker after he kicked in her back door. She had been living in fear, showering with a gun, and propping up a chair against her door for just this sort of situation. Her post to Reddit made the story go viral. She writes, I'm writing this staring at the mess the police left for me, in a bit of a fog. And then it continues to what we read just earlier. Police say former boyfriend Douglas Eugene Jackson, who is 22, kicked in her door at around 1 a.m. last Friday. I awoke around 1:15 a.m. to the sound of the door giving way after one kick, followed by the sounds of my stalker struggling, and you know the rest of the story. We just went over this. KVVU TV reports that Jackson left the scene and tried to hide in some bushes. Police dogs quickly found the stalker. He was treated for his injuries at University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. Jackson now faces charges of home invasion and aggravated stalking. For months of him evading the police, I began to question whether he was unstoppable, untraceable, and you know the rest. The victim does not wish to be identified, has saved many threatening texts and social media posts from her stalker. She says he forced her to move, obtain a restraining order, and acquire a license to carry a concealed weapon. The victim followed up with a note. The outpouring of support is wild. I can't thank you guys enough. Everyone can be a critic, and the fact still remains. You don't know what you will do in a situation until it's presented in front of you. Those who believe there was other things to be done have never had someone tell you that you no longer deserve to draw breath and mean it. And then it continues to what we just read. And then the Daily Mail has an article on the case, along with the text evidence submitted by the OP. And I'm going to read through some of the texts real quick, which are just crazy. So the OP says, "Leave me alone. That's all." And then the stalker says, "I love you. I'm at my friend's apartments now. It's right down the street by yours. I'd like to see you. Why you being so anti-Doug? Doug is good people. Doug says he's coming over there now." And then he says, "D, or then live your life, enjoy it. I may do what I feel I need to because obviously we can't be civil anymore. I'm about to ruin your life. Right about. Want to end this? Cops everywhere. Cops everywhere. Yo, not cool." And then a update on the case in 2020, which was 6 years later. Reno, Nevada. A Nevada man has been sentenced to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to stalking a female acquaintance while on parole for a similar crime that happened in Las Vegas. The Washoe County District Attorney's Office in Reno announced the sentence for 28-year-old Douglas Eugene Jackson on Friday. Jackson was arrested in Florence, Arizona in January and pleaded guilty to the aggravated stalking charge in July. According to prosecutors, an investigation by the Sparks Police Department determined Jackson had sent numerous threatening text messages to a woman over several months in 2019. The texts included threats against the woman's dog and property. He also called the woman's family and friends in an effort to get information about her. At the time of the threats, Jackson was on parole for stalking a former girlfriend in Las Vegas. That woman ended up shooting him at her home. According to the district attorney's office, prosecutor Travis Lucia sought a maximum sentence because of the terrifying nature of Jackson's conduct, which came only after 1 month on parole for the previous crime. Jackson was living in Washoe County at the time of the threats, but had no steady address. And I think it's just insane. In my girlfriend. I was backing up my car up my driveway after a long day of work, eager to get out of my uniform and onto the couch. When I first saw him, there was a little kid, a boy, standing on my porch. Oddly, my first reaction was fear, though I couldn't tell you why. But I could feel my heart speed up as soon as I saw his face pop up in my rearview mirror. He was dressed in denim shorts and a red t-shirt, and a backpack was slung over his shoulders. His face was pale, and he had light brown hair peeking out from underneath a blue baseball cap. His eyes locked onto mine in the reflection as I put the car in park and pulled the keys out of the ignition. I broke off the unsettling eye contact to glance up and down the street. What if this is a robbery? I thought wildly. That's a thing, isn't it? Children use as decoys to get your guard down. I shook my head, realizing how ridiculous I sounded. Jesus, I need to lay off the late night true crime rabbit holes. The street was empty, except a tabby cat wandering idly by the storm drain. I glanced back toward the boy as I gathered my duffel bag and laptop case from the back seat. Then it dawned on me, and I laughed at myself. Once every few weeks or so, I'd get neighborhood kids knocking on my door, asking to retrieve a frisbee or football or whatever else out of my backyard. My fence shared a side with 2 other yards, both of which housed apparently very social and rambunctious children. Chuckling, I shut the car door a little too hard, sending the cat scurrying off down the street. I waved at the boy. "So what is it this time, soccer ball?" I asked him as I stepped up onto the porch. He cocked his head slightly. "Ball?" "Yeah, did y'all throw something over the fence again? If you give me a minute to set my stuff down, I'll grab it for you." That's when I realized something. I couldn't hear any kids playing behind the house, besides a sprinkler across the street and a police car siren going off in the distance. It was quiet. I could feel myself getting a little nervous again, this time worried that this kid was lost or in some sort of trouble. I squatted down, concerned, Hey, what's your name? Matt. Something about him seemed familiar, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it yet. All right, Matt, you okay? Where's your parents? He shuffled his feet. She brought me here. Your mom, you mean? She dropped you off here, like on my porch? Why? Then an idea hit me. The reason he looked familiar. I tried to smile at him. Is your mom's name Jennifer? Jenny? He nodded. I sighed, probably failing to hide how frustrated this whole situation was making me. Jenny was my ex. We didn't date very long. I'm the one who called it off. She'd been great at first, but it soon became apparent she had a serious drug problem. I couldn't deal with the mood swings or the constant stealing and lying, so after a last-ditch effort to get her to get help, which was staunchly refused, I broke it off. Damn. Maybe this is a robbery after all, I thought darkly. Part of me still felt bad about dumping someone that was obviously in a bad place, but honestly, I just wasn't equipped to handle that sort of thing. I was also not equipped to handle kids. And looking at Matt, I realized this was the longest conversation I'd had with someone other than adults in years. I found out Jenny had a kid, or perhaps multiple, pretty early on in our relationship, but I never met them. They didn't live with Jenny, and it was obviously a bit of a sore topic for her. When I asked, she told me that the dad was an asshole that refused to let her see them, and that was the first and last time it was brought up. Of course, later I'd realized the real reasons behind her lack of custody, but at the time I didn't want to upset her, so I didn't pry into it further. And here I was, still unable to shake her out of my life. This was really putting a damper on my plans of doing absolutely nothing on a rare stretch of days. I unlocked the door and walked into the house, setting my bags down inside. You can put yours down with mine here. No reply. I turned back and saw Matt had not followed me in yet. He stood right outside the doorway, head tilted, eyes on mine. Hey, come on inside. It's getting dark out here and the porch light is busted. I shepherded the boy into my living room and onto the couch. I sat across from him in an armchair. After a couple of minutes of awkward silence, I asked him why Jenny had dropped him off at my doorstep. There was no one else. None close enough. Matt hadn't yet blinked. His eyes were wide and dark. They reminded me of a shark or some other cold-blooded animal. I rubbed my eyes warily and groaned. That didn't surprise me. The only bridges Jenny hadn't burned were shady characters that had no business taking care of a kid. Not that I had any idea how to either, but at least she didn't have to worry about Matt stepping on a dirty needle or seeing God knows what at a wild house party. And Melon, Jenny's mother, God, I did not want to have to deal with her again. But I figured she'd be my best bet to pass along the kid. She lived about 4 hours away, likely why he hadn't been dropped in her care to begin with, but I would be more than happy to make the drive. I just needed to call her to get the address. I glanced at my phone. Nearly 9 o'clock. I looked over at the boy. He'd been staring at me blankly the whole time. I'm not a fan of kids, to be honest. I don't hate them. I'm just never around them much, but this kid gave me the creeps. I wondered why she had to leave him behind so quickly, and why he was with her in the first place. I hoped she had checked herself into rehab, getting help before she could talk herself out of it again, and not something nefarious. Do you want some food? Matt shook his head. Not hungry? Okay. Are you tired? It's getting kind of late. When's your bedtime? He shrugged. This is like pulling teeth. Come on, Patrick, get it together. You're the adult here. I pulled out some spare sheets and an extra pillow, turning the couch into a makeshift bed. I opened the backpack and found a couple changes of clothes and some toiletries. I handed Matt a pair of PJs and a toothbrush and guided him to the bathroom. Once he shut the door, I wandered into my own bedroom and pulled out my phone. I tried calling Jenny first. The number you are trying to call is no longer in service. I wasn't that surprised. Her not paying her phone bill or losing her phone had always been a point of tension while we were together. I sighed. Steeling myself, I dialed Marilyn's number. After a few rings, it put me through to voicemail. I left a quick one, stammering out a couple of sentences explaining what was going on and to call me back ASAP. Then hung up. Should I call the police? I didn't want to get Jenny in trouble. Not if she was trying to turn things around. Besides, I had no idea where she was currently since she moved to a new apartment after the breakup. I walked out into the living room and was surprised to see Matt already fast asleep on the couch. It hit me just how exhausted I was. It had been an insane week at work, and I'd put in a nearly 11-hour shift. Yawning, I decided that I'd be able to deal with everything better after getting some rest. I double-checked all the locks and then got into bed, leaving my door open a crack in case anything happened and Matt needed me. I passed out almost immediately. Daddy, Daddy. My eyes shot open. The soft glow of the alarm clock illuminated a pair of eyes inches from my own. Shit! I scrambled upright. Jesus, man. You scared me. I'm sorry. I frowned. I'm not your dad. The eyes stared, unblinking. Oh. I could barely make out his outline in the dark. Are you okay? There's a monster trying to get in. Monsters aren't real. You probably had a bad dream. Like I said, I'm not great with kids. Go back to bed, okay? Can I sleep in here with you? No, I don't think that's appropriate. I can sleep on the floor. I didn't like the thought of that, but I was too tired to argue. Okay, sure, I guess. Up until that point, Matt hadn't seemed very emotive. He hadn't laughed, or smiled, or cried, but when I said that, he grinned wide. And something about it made my stomach flip. Maybe it was the way the green light bounced off of his teeth, evoking the image of a Cheshire cat or maybe a wolf. I stayed frozen as he disappeared beneath the side of my bed. I couldn't see him, but I could hear his soft breathing. And every once in a while, he'd make this odd clicking sound, the way one might against the roof of your mouth with your tongue. It took me a long time to fall back asleep, and when I did, it was fitful. I woke to knocking on the front door. The clock read 11 o'clock. I must have slept straight through an alarm. Sunlight streamed in through the cracks in the blinds, making me squint. I peeked over the edge of the bed, half hoping last night was just a weird dream. But the crumpled blanket and pillow were still laying on the floor. Matt, however, was not. I hastily pulled on some jeans and made my way to the front door. The boy was in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. It was off. Morning, I said, a little nervously. Here, let me help. I switched on the TV. A solemn-looking news anchor stood above a running banner reading, S-word epidemic has experts. I quickly flipped through channels before landing on something more child-friendly. The knocking got louder. Okay, I'm coming. I jogged to the door and cracked it open. Were you still sleeping? It's almost noon. What? Did you forget your hot, awesome girlfriend was coming over? She winked playfully, smiling. I blinked, still groggy. Yeah, I had. With the long workday yesterday and all of the strangeness of last night's event, I had totally forgotten about our plans. Sheepishly, I grinned. I'm sorry, it's been a long night. Her eyes wandered over my shoulder, and her smile faltered slightly. Who's that? It's kind of a long story. Come on in, I'll make you some coffee. A few minutes later, I had gotten her up to speed. She did not look pleased. How long is he going to be staying here? Not long, I answered quickly. I mean, shouldn't be. I led her into the living room. Matt looked at us out of the corner of his eye, but didn't say anything. I cleared my throat. Matt, this is my friend, Claire, she interrupted, finishing my sentence. Nice to meet you, Matt. She wasn't very convincing. Maybe she thinks he's secretly my kid. She turned back to me. So now is not a good time? No, I sputtered. No, it's fine. Stay. I smiled weakly at her. It's just for a few days, if that, I promise. I felt claustrophobic suddenly. Hey, I could do with some fresh air. Get out of the house for a bit. Claire looked a little uncomfortable, glancing over at Matt. I don't know, maybe we should stay in. We can grab a bite to eat, make a date out of it, my treat. About an hour later, we were all seated on the outdoor patio of a little cafe downtown. I had brought some paper and markers along, hoping to keep the kid entertained while we waited. A waiter brought a pitcher of water and a couple of cups to our table. Hey, we'll actually need one more. I gestured towards Matt. I was half worried he'd asked us to put the markers away. The tablecloth was white, but the waiter didn't even look at the boy, just apologized. I'll bring another right away. Are you ready to order? I nodded. I'll have the burger, medium well, side of fries. He scribbled away at his pen pad. Anything else? Yeah, a chicken tenders basket with how about the fruit cup? And I paused for Claire to order. But the waiter just kept looking at me expectantly. Claire cleared her throat and pointed down at my menu. And a chicken Caesar salad, please. Thanks. I relayed her order to the waiter. He noted and wrote the rest of it down. Hungry, huh? I'll have the extra glass out in just a second. He walked off and I poured some water for Matt and Claire, figuring it would be the chivalrous thing to do, to wait on the third myself. As I was sliding the last one over to Matt, who was now fully absorbed in his drawing, a snippet of conversation caught my attention. Worried about her, you know? She called me up the other day to tell me her daughter was visiting, asking if I wanted to make the drive up to see them, but my aunt died nearly a decade ago. I looked over out of the corner of my eye, not wanting to seem nosy. Two young women were sitting at the table across from us. One was nodding sympathetically, hand over the other's. Mine had memory issues, dementia, I guess. Towards the end, too, it might be time to consider. Pat, are you with us? Claire interrupted my eavesdropping. I was asking you how work has been lately. Embarrassed, I turned my attention to her. I vented about my job for a bit and apologized again for forgetting about our date, which she laughed off. It's okay, Pat. Don't worry about it. We've been together for, a year next week. Time's gone by so fast. I know it's not as her voice trailed off. I noticed the girls at the other table were now trying to steal glances at us, whispering among themselves nervously. I followed Claire's gaze to Matt. I had almost forgotten he was there. He hadn't said a peep the entire time. He had the red marker in his hands and was putting some finishes touches on his drawing. I craned my neck to get a better view. He had drawn what looked like a crow, its eyes scratched out with little X's. The neck flopped to the side at an awkward angle. He was dotting its head with the red ink, which I assumed was meant to be blood. Hey, what you drawing there? I kept my voice light. He didn't answer, just smirked slightly and kept working. He was holding his left hand rigidly under the table, something that I normally wouldn't notice except his eyes would dart down to his lap every couple of seconds. Claire and I exchanged a worried glance. Matt, I said softly, what do you have under there? He slowly raised his hand so we could see what he held. When I gasped, he dropped it quickly onto the table. It was a crow, its head twisted sharply to the side. A fleck of red smeared off onto the light tablecloth. I found it. That grin again. It looked so unnatural on the face of a child. All right, so I'm so sorry about the wait, sir. It's been a glass clanged against the patio. Of course, the waiter picked the absolute worst time to return. He stared at the dead bird, then up to me. I apologized profusely, handing him my card and a hefty cash tip before asking to get everything to go. He complied, quickly this time, and I grabbed the bags in one hand and Matt with the other, quickly crumpling the drawing and shoving it deep into my pockets before ushering the boy and a mortified Claire into the car. Once the three of us were back home, I asked Claire to keep an eye on Matt and excused myself to try and call Jenny again. I turned on the TV in my bedroom on low to keep my voice from carrying into the living room. The number you were trying to call is no longer in service. I dialed Marilyn once more and was robotically informed her voicemail was full. I slammed my phone down onto the bed. Fuck. This was not the relaxing time I'd hoped for. Of all the kids in the world, of course I get stuck with the poster boy for the next horror blockbuster. Another strange case in which the would-be perpetrator tried to turn himself in for, ultimately a crime that police say never actually took place. The woman, whose name cannot be released at this time, said the boy claimed to be her nephew, whom she hadn't. I swiveled towards the TV, straining to make out the muffled words. After conducting an extensive search, it was determined that the teenager she claimed she killed most likely never existed in the first place. Neighbors report no. The signal cut out for a moment. I heard a clap of thunder in the distance. Claimed self-defense, stating that the intruders exhibiting odd behavior posed an active threat to their lives. However, when they tried to show law enforcement the crime scene, the bodies seem apparently to vanish into thin, what the hell? I ran my hands wildly around the bed to find the remote, knocking it off in the process. Once I retrieved it, I turned up the volume a notch or two, hoping the closed door would still muffle it enough. Follows on the heels of two other similar cases this week alone. Though in the first we covered, a family member did report seeing the supposed female. However, their testimony has been called into question by, I know you're not my dad. I jumped. Matt had the door slightly open and was staring at me through the crack. I hastily turned off the TV. What? I know you're not my dad because my dad is dead. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. He stared at me for a very uncomfortable moment before closing the door. Once I heard the footsteps fade down the hall, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I was shaking. Get it together, man. It's a kid. A creepy kid, sure, but his mom's a crackhead. What kid wouldn't be a little messed up in the head from all that? I glanced at the dark screen of the now silent TV, and people have always been a little crazy. We're only seeing these non-existent patterns now because we're so connected. We have all the information in the world at our fingertips these days. Footsteps approached my room once again, followed by a soft knock. Hey, it's me. Can I come in? To my relief, it was Claire. Yeah, no problem. She sat on the bed with me, legs crossed. I'm going to stay with you tonight, if that's okay. Just in case. She lowered her voice slightly, glancing toward the now wide open door. That really freaked me out. At the restaurant, I'm not saying this kid is dangerous, but it wouldn't hurt to have an extra pair of eyes and ears, you know? I nodded, kissing her forehead gratefully. Hey, have you, watched the news lately by any chance? No, she frowned. Why should I? I hesitated a moment before answering. Nah, things are just so depressing in the world right now. It's good to take a break. I figured I was just being paranoid, and I didn't want her thinking I was losing it. Maybe you should take a break from watching it too. You seem tense. She smiled thinly. Also, I thought you said Jennifer had a daughter. Did I? I frowned. Jen and I had barely discussed her child. It was possible I hadn't remembered correctly, or at all. Must have been mistaken. We ate our boxed lunch, now technically our dinner, in silence. Matt didn't present us with any more dead animals, thankfully, but every so often I caught him shooting a dark look towards Claire. She didn't seem to notice, and I didn't want to bring it to her attention by calling him out on it. Later that night, I once again arranged the couch into a makeshift bed, and he settled in without complaint. I felt bad for him then. He didn't ask to be here. "Hey, I've been trying to get in contact with your mom and grandma. I know it's no fun staying here. I'm sorry. I'm not used to kids around. I'm sure I'll be able to talk to them soon. Figure this out." "Okay." Another soft click. I suppose he had a nervous tick. "Try to stay out here this time, okay?" "Okay." His eyes again seemed to darken for a moment, and I suppressed a shudder. I patted his shoulder awkwardly. "All right, good night then." Claire was waiting for me in the bedroom, sitting cross-legged on the bed. "Is this legal?" "What? I mean, are you going to get in trouble for having him here? What if your ex tried to say you kidnapped him?" She gestured vaguely towards the direction of the living room. "And why the hell would she do that? She was upset about the breakup, yeah, but not that upset." She stared at me as I talked, arms crossed. I tried softening my tone. "I mean, he's just visiting. It's not against the law to have a friend's or acquaintance's kid at your house. I want him gone. Soon." For a brief moment, an odd look passed over her face. It didn't look like the sweet woman I'd been dating. I was taken aback. But then it was back to normal. So fast, I wasn't sure I had seen it at all. "That's not really your call, is it? It's my house." It came out harsher than I intended. She was out of line, but I wasn't trying to start a fight. I knew the kid was making her uncomfortable just like me. She laid down and adjusted her pillow slightly, and I saw something glint beneath it, reflecting the light from the lamp. "Claire, what'd you put under there?" When she didn't answer right away, I pulled up the side of the pillow to see for myself. "What the hell, Claire? A knife?" She stared at me, face unreadable. "It's just a precaution. Like I said, he scared me earlier. I don't trust him. This is insane. He's a little kid, Claire." I was pissed, but half of the anger was coming from a little voice in my mind saying she might be right. I pushed the thought away. "Just leave if you're that freaked out." She huffed and turned angrily to the side, facing away from me. I sighed and turned off the lamp, the cold pit in my stomach growing bigger. For once, the dark made me uneasy instead of relaxed. Needing a distraction, I rummaged around my nightstand for my earbuds, popping one in and turning my phone's brightness all the way down so as not to disturb Claire. I scrolled through YouTube Shorts. I've stubbornly refused to download TikTok, and the comedy skits did help put me at ease. That is, until a weird one popped up. The camera was pointed at an open front door, but from an awkward, low angle off to the side, as if the person filming was trying not to be obvious. I couldn't see through the doorway from the vantage point, only a woman with her back turned towards the camera, holding open a door. Suppressed laughter kept causing the image to unfocus and shake. "Jess, why'd you even invite her?" someone unseen whispered. Low voices agreed. I guess there were 3 or 4 girls behind the camera. "Dude, my mom made me. I think she feels sorry for her. I didn't want to. She's a total freak. She's like the girl from The Grudge, or like a vampire, for real. Would it kill her to get some sun once in a while?" One snickered. I assumed the woman at the door was her mother. She was talking to whoever was outside. I turned the volume up, trying to make out what she was saying. "No problem at all. Both of you come right on in." Oh my freaking god, no way. She brought an imaginary friend? Fits of poorly muffled giggles all around. That's so freaking crazy, even for her. The mother must have heard the laughter because she turned and shot a quick glare at the group. As she did, a small, pale girl appeared behind her, stepping through the doorway. The group hastily shoved the phone into the couch before she fully entered. Video going dark. I thought back to my less than popular school days. Middle schoolers can be absolutely brutal. as I remembered all too well. But after recent events, the video just got to me. A kid showing up randomly, acting creepy. It hit a little too close to home, and as silly as it made me feel, the vampire comment admittedly freaked me out. I thought back to Matt standing rigidly right outside the threshold, waiting for me to invite him in. How pale he was. He didn't say Jenny was his mother. I assumed, and he barely agreed. I clicked on the account name. The most recent video had only been posted an hour ago, less than a day after the one I just watched. A girl's tear-streaked face filled the thumbnail. A small smear of something suspiciously rust-colored dotted her t-shirt. I clicked nervously, but the video was stuck buffering. Damn storm. I thought that 5G crap was supposed to fix all this. Patrick, you need to get some sleep. Claire's voice was right by my ear. She laughed a little when I jumped. I closed the app quickly. My phone was about to die anyway, so I handed it to Claire, asking her to plug it into the outlet on her side, and she agreed before rolling back over. I shut my eyes, willing myself to sleep. Eventually, I did manage to pass out for about an hour until my eyes shot open. Something had woken me, but I couldn't immediately pinpoint what. I rolled over to look at Claire, but she was still facing away, sleeping peacefully. Click. Matt. I squinted, trying to find his silhouette in the darkness, but I couldn't. I shifted uneasily. Click. Matt, is that you? I whispered. No one answered, but I heard a slight rustling. I thought back to the other night, how he laid on the floor. I inched toward the edge of the bed and peered over, my eyes having adjusted to the darkness somewhat. Nothing. My stomach flipped as an unsettling thought popped into my head, and I slowly swung my feet off the bed until I was standing upright. It'd be a tight squeeze, yes, but he was small enough. An image of him, teeth bared sharp and limbs contorted tightly, flashed unbidden in my mind. I quietly got down onto my knees, craning my neck to look underneath the bed. I took a deep breath and swept my gaze back and forth, and nothing. Click. The feeling of being watched raised the hairs on my neck. I whipped around, eyes landing on the closet. I saw something move behind the slats. Matt? Is that you? Click, 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 click. Heart in my throat, I closed the distance and threw open the door. Matt was crouched in the corner of the closet, wide-eyed. He held something tightly behind his back. Give it to me. I spoke low but forcefully, hoping he couldn't see how much I was shaking. Now. He dropped a jagged shard of glass on the floor. I thought back to the shocked waiter shattering the cup on the patio. Had he been hiding it this whole time? Why? I hurriedly scooped it up, nearly slicing my thumb open in the process. What the hell do you think you're doing? He held my gaze. Killing monsters. Click. Go. I pointed towards the door. Do not come back in here, you hear me? Stay on the couch and don't move. I'll be out in a minute to talk. He slunk past me quietly. I stood vigilantly by the door until I heard the creak of him clambering onto the couch. I can't do this. I can't. I've got to get him out. Tonight. But where could I take him? I pulled at my hair in desperation. I glanced over at Claire, still fast asleep somehow. Call Mom. She'll know. Why haven't I thought to call my own mother? It was well past midnight, but where my mother lived, it wouldn't be much past 10. I padded softly to the side of the bed where Claire was sleeping, careful not to wake her. My phone was charging on the floor next to her. I unplugged it from the outlet and hurried into the hall bedroom, shutting the door behind me. She picked up on the second ring. Patrick! She sounded panicked. I've been trying to call you all night, I frowned, pulling up the call logs. It was empty. Honey, have you seen the news? Her anxiety was only heightening my own. Yeah, a little, but hey, Mom, something's really wrong, hon. I wish you were here. I don't like the thought of you living alone with everything going on. She paused. My neighbor. You might remember Betty. She died last night. Oh my God, Mom, what happened? The police say she committed S-word. She sounded dubious. But you don't think so? Well, they found her in the bathroom, one of those actually built into the wall. I glanced uneasily at my own shower. So, why don't you think she did it? It certainly looks like she did, but Patrick, all these cases on the news, she paused. Betty had a visitor for a few days leading up to her death. She introduced me as his cousin, but she's told me before. Both her parents were an only child. Okay, so maybe second cousin or whatever they're called. Mom, slow down. No, just listen for a minute. Our other neighbors, they didn't seem to notice him. I mentioned him to Paul next door, and he said Betty didn't have anyone staying with her, but I had seen both Betty and her cousin at his door earlier that day. It looked like Betty was returning a book she must have borrowed. She took a breath, and then she wasn't reported deceased until her daughter stopped by to check on her. If this cousin was staying there, he must have seen her body. The daughter, Anna's her name, she said there wasn't any sign someone had been staying there at all. She didn't know her mother had any cousins either. And Patrick, there was no car besides Betty's old sedan in her driveway the entire time. How'd he get there? How did he leave? I had seen him just the night before. It just doesn't make sense. Well, maybe he took an Uber. I trailed off weakly. I didn't even believe that myself, and I knew she wouldn't either. Mom, make sure you keep your doors locked, okay? Don't let anyone in if you haven't specifically asked them over. Maybe call your friend, what's her name, to stay with you for a while. She agreed, then asked, is everything okay? I'm glad you called, of course, but it must have been, 1 o'clock over there? What are you doing up? She paused. I know things have been tough for you lately with, I worry about you, living so far away. I realized that I didn't have the heart to scare her right now. Not when she was already so worked up and couldn't come to see me. I'm just, returning your calls, seeing if you're all right. Couldn't sleep. After hanging up, I slumped up against the tub, heart beating out of my chest. I'd been hoping to get some advice, but instead our conversation had only cemented my suspicion, slowly building since that first day. That Matt just wasn't a troubled child. He was something more. Something potentially otherworldly. And he was dangerous. I had begun wrapping my head around all of this when I heard a yelp and a sharp crack, followed by a thud. Shit, Claire, how could you leave her alone? I raced back to the bedroom, flipping the switch to the overhead light. Oh my God, I breathed. Blood was slowly soaking into the white sheets. Claire was holding her shoulder. I had to. She looked at me blankly. He stabbed me, Patrick. I was just trying to get him off me. I saw a pair of small feet peeking out behind the end of the bed. Slowly, I walked around, revealing Matt sprawled across the floor. His neck was twisted unnaturally to the side. Blood flecked his lips. Just like the bird, I thought feverishly. Like the crow. He hit the bedpost. I didn't mean to. I turned towards Claire. I stared at her, speechless. I didn't know what to feel. Seeing someone dead is absolutely horrific, of course. And his pale face burned in my mind, but was he even a child? And for it to be self-defense, honestly, a very, very small part of me felt relieved. It didn't have to be me. It was over. I swallowed the bile creeping up my throat, head pounding. Claire, we need to get you to a hospital. No, she snapped loudly. She lowered her voice. No, it's not that deep. I'll go wrap it up. I buried my face in my hands as she walked off. I knew I should probably call the cops, but they wouldn't notice the body, would they? They'd throw me in the loony bin like they did with all the others. I'd lose my job, I'd lose the house, my life would be ruined even more than it already had. This is insane. This is way too insane. Oh my God, why did all of this have to happen to me, to us? When Claire returned, a bandage plastered neatly around her arm, she helped me strip the bed. We wrapped the body in the sheets and dragged it into the bathroom in silence. The body will be gone in the morning. It'll be gone like the others on the news. It was self-defense. He wasn't human. Claire laid down on the bare mattress and closed her eyes. We were both exhausted, but I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep. I left her there and fell onto the sofa. I pulled up the search engine on my phone and typed mystery visitor murder. I needed answers. The screen loaded pages of results, all from the past month. The first one was a write-up recapping the news report I saw earlier in the day. A thumbnail of a low-resolution YouTube video read "kill or be killed" in bold above a conspiracy nut-looking dude miming holding a gun. I rolled my eyes and scrolled past, finally clicking on a short-form video that caught my eye. A manic-looking face filled my screen. Not everyone could see them. That's how you can test it. The teenager talked rapidly as she filmed herself in a car. I think, from the research I've done, the people I've talked to, my theory is that only people who have seen someone die or dead can see them, the visitors. She sucked in a deep breath. I saw my grandfather die when I was 10. I could see my uncle. She threw exaggerated air quotations as she said this. When I came home from school, Mom said he was visiting. I'd never met him before. When my brother got home later that night, he ignored the guy and just went to his room. I thought he was being just an asshole like usual. Her face screwed up, and she paused to wipe a tear running down her cheek. My mom died that night. I found her in her bed. She had pills stuffed down her throat, the one she keeps in her bedside table. Another pause for another tear. She wiped it away angrily. The police say she committed S-word, that I invented this uncle as a coping mechanism. My brother thinks I'm mental. She looked straight at the camera, defiant. But people will see soon. It's all over the news now. People are catching on, and whoever finds the body, well, now they're super. She stumbled over the words for a minute. They're susceptible to them now. It's an invasion. It's spreading. Don't invite them in. The video ended there. I sat silently, considering her chilling words. My mother and I were in our car crash when I was 12. My dad, the driver, didn't make it. What she was saying made sense. At least as much sense as anything else about this did. My eyelids felt like lead and my head was pounding. The late and interrupted nights were taking its toll. Insomnia slowly leading my thoughts to a dull crawl. Flashes of Matt's dark, lifeless eyes kept warming into my head. Somehow, I must have managed to fall asleep, because I woke to the sound of my phone blasting my ringtone in my ear. Unknown number. My stomach churned uneasily as I answered it. Birds chirped merrily outside the window. Hello? Hey Patrick, this is Jen. I sat up, suddenly wide awake. I'm so sorry, I'm just now calling. I left the rehab early. My mother died, and I have to deal with her things. She, committed S-word. Jenny started crying. I'm getting myself on track, Pat, I swear, but it's my fault. She's been done with me for a long time now. I didn't tell her I was getting help. I wanted it to be a surprise, and now she's gone and it's all my fault. She hiccuped weakly. I'll come by tomorrow to pick up Matt, like I wrote in the letter. He can be a handful. He hasn't been right since he saw his dad die, and I'm so sorry, but I really didn't have anyone else. She kept talking, but the ringing in my ears drowned her out. My mind was struggling to connect the dots. Letter? What letter? Matt isn't real. He doesn't exist. Jenny has a daughter? He? My eyes wandered toward the shut bathroom door. No. Jesus Christ. Patrick, are you still there? Is it okay to come by tomorrow around noon? That's the earliest I can get there. If I could come sooner, I would. I'll have to ask my girlfriend, I croaked out hoarsely. I walked dazedly into my bedroom, shutting the door behind me. Claire wasn't in bed. I heard water running in the bathroom. I didn't know you had a girlfriend. Yeah, we've been dating for a year now. An uncomfortable thought was trying to weasel to the front of my mind. A year, but... What, Pat? We broke up 4 months ago. Are you saying you were cheating on me, Patrick? The phone dropped out of my hand. I was suddenly aware how quiet it was. The water in the bath had been shut off. I held my breath. Patrick, who are you talking to? Claire's voice floated from behind the door, low and cold. Tap, tap. It didn't sound like a knock. It sounded like something sharp against the wood. I shoved Claire's pillow off the bed. The knife was gone. Can I come in? I could hear the predatory grin in her voice. The true wolf in sheep's clothing. I sank onto the mattress, mind racing. Your coworkers have noticed you've been depressed lately, calling out more often. People know it's the anniversary of your dad's death. People will be sad but not surprised. They'll say the signs were there. I started hyperventilating. The waiter, the two women at the cafe, they saw me with Matt. They saw me turn to the empty chair next to me, talking a bit loud to no one. They'll find Matt's body. It won't disappear because he's real. They'll think you killed him, that you snapped under the pressure. They'll say you couldn't handle the guilt once you came to your senses. Sour bile creeped up my throat. I felt like I was going to throw up. Tap. You'll invite me in. A soft, cruel laugh. I can wait all day. I'll wait all night long. And I believed her. So that's where I am now. I decided to take this time to send a message to my mom to tell her I love her. I also spent a few hours writing this all down. I know I could have kept it short. And I know most people will think it's all bullshit, that I'm just trying to cover my tracks, but I really want you to understand. To put yourself in my shoes and see why things happened the way they did. Also, I took my time writing to delay the inevitable. I'll be calling 911 shortly to let them know they'll find two bodies. Because Claire is right. My life is over. One way or another. I will let her in. So if anyone is reading this and you think you know me, if you're a friend or a loved one, I'm sorry. Jenny, I'm so unbelievably sorry. It's an invasion, and it's spreading. Be careful who you invite into your home. Mirror on the wall. This story is 100% true. Feel free to comment. Let's begin. From a very young age, I was always a bit strange, a bit peculiar. I was an extremely sick child. I almost died twice due to pneumonia and was diagnosed as a chronic asthmatic. My parents thought I wouldn't make it, but for whatever reason, I survived. I honestly don't know why I survived. I think about it often. Why did I make it when others didn't? It eats me up at times. Anyway, I have this theory. My soul was between both worlds, the living and the spiritual. When I fully came back to the living, something came back with me. I've always had a weird view of the world around me, seeing things others couldn't. I still do to this day, and I'm 31 years old. The first incident I can recall happened when I was around 5 years old. My parents and I were visiting my grandma at the time. I remember having morning tea with everyone at the table. I think my grandma had made homemade pancakes with jam and cream. I told my parents I needed to use the bathroom, so I left the kitchen, turned right, and went straight down the hall. To the right was the bathroom. For whatever reason, my grandma had a huge round mirror placed directly across from the bathroom, hanging on the wall. Back then, I was terrified of closing toilets, bathrooms, or bedroom doors. It freaked me out, so naturally, while doing my business, I left the bathroom door open, fully facing the mirror. Suddenly, I had this eerie feeling that someone was watching me. I looked at the mirror and saw an old man staring back at me. I screamed bloody murder. My parents came running down the hall, panic-stricken. I was in tears. They asked what had happened, and all I could say was, there was a man in the mirror. Naturally, my parents thought I was imagining things. They carried me back to the living room and held me until I calmed down. Once I was calm, my grandma asked me, what did the man look like? I was silent for a while. I glanced around the room, and my eyes stopped at a small photo on my grandma's coffee table. In the photo were my grandma and a man with their arms wrapped around each other. I pointed to the man in the photo and said, that was the man. Silence filled the room. My parents asked if I was sure, and I was adamant it was him. It turned out that the man in the photo was my granddad. He had died long ago before I was even born, due to a severe illness after returning from the war. I guess my granddad wanted to meet me since he never got the chance. He never visited me again, but I've always believed he was protecting and guiding me. Things only got stranger as I grew older. If you'd like to hear more paranormal stories, let me know. I have plenty to share. Thank you for reading.